Hey everyone, I'm Mia. Welcome to Her Court Daily. Today's WNBA story is honestly wild. Jessica's got the full breakdown.
Mia gave you the headline. I'm giving you everything underneath it. Because roughly 1 hour before tip-off in Atlanta, the Dream quietly crossed their assist leader off the game sheet, and almost nobody watching at home noticed it happen. Jordin Canada, listed with an illness and downgraded to a game-time decision, was ruled out about an hour before tip against Indiana. And that would be the first game she has missed all season. That is not a maintenance night. That is a team fighting for home court in the Eastern Conference deciding at the last possible second that its floor general physically could not go. And here is the part that should make every Fever fan sit straight up in their chair. Canada was not the only name with a question mark next to it, and she was not even the most alarming one. There is one line on that Atlanta injury sheet that the coaching staff flat out refused to attach a date to, and I am going to read you that exact wording later in this video, because I genuinely believe it decides who survives the first round of these playoffs. Before we get into it, do me one favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me who you think actually holds the edge in this rivalry now, and subscribe so you get these breaking WNBA scoops the moment they land instead of 3 days late from somebody else. Let's set the table properly, because the standings context is what makes this whole thing spicy. Indiana came into this one at 22-12, winners of 3 straight, and Atlanta came in at 21-12, having taken 3 of their last 4, with every one of those wins coming by double figures. 4th place visiting 5th place. Indiana had also won 8 of its last 10 and was carrying the highest scoring offense in the entire league at 96.3 points per game. 1 game separated these two teams. 1. And the stakes were not subtle, because a win on Sunday would have handed Atlanta a top 4 spot, plus the tiebreaker over the Fever, which matters enormously for postseason seeding. Which brings me to my first correction of the night, and this one is going to annoy a lot of people who have been repeating the opposite for weeks. There is a talking point floating around that Indiana comfortably owns the season series and therefore owns the tiebreaker. That is simply not true in 2026. Here is the actual ledger. On June 4th, Indiana won 83-71 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, with Kelsey Mitchell pouring in 25 points on 11 of 15 shooting. On June 18th, Atlanta walked into Indiana and won 108-101 behind 21 points and 11 rebounds from Angel Reese. Then on June 20th, Atlanta won again, 113-96, with Rhyne Howard scorching Indiana for 24. Read that again. The Dream did not just win 2 in a row against the Fever, they won the second one by 17. So anybody telling you Indiana is sitting pretty on the tiebreaker is working off last year's script. But that wasn't the whole story, because the sheet Atlanta handed in for this game was the most fragile one they have submitted all year. Start with the front court. With 8 minutes and 56 seconds left in the second quarter of Atlanta's blowout win over Connecticut, Brionna Jones blocked a layup attempt by Sun forward Nell Angloma, landed awkwardly on her left leg, and could not finish the game. Now here is the line I promised you, and it is the coldest sentence on the entire report. Head coach Karl Smesko told reporters on Sunday that Jones, with a leg issue, does not have a timetable for a return. No timetable. Not day-to-day. Not a week. Nothing. In August, with the playoffs weeks away. When a coach says the words "no timetable" about a 5-time All-Star in the final stretch of a seeding race, that is not an injury update. That's a warning flare. And it lands even harder when you understand what this season has already cost her. Jones tore her meniscus in early February while playing for USK Praha in the Czech Republic, an injury that immediately threw her availability for the 2026 season into doubt. She ended up missing the first 24 games of the regular season before finally making her 2026 debut against Toronto. She has appeared in only 9 games this year, averaging 8.2 points on 51.9% shooting with 5.6 rebounds and 2 assists off the bench. 9 games. She grinds her way back from surgery, gives Atlanta a real interior anchor again, and then goes down on a defensive play she made perfectly. Basketball can be brutally unfair like that. So now stack the sheet up, line by line, the way a front office would. Jones ruled out, no return date. Canada ruled out with illness. And then the third name, which is where it gets genuinely strange. Te-Hina Paopao was also listed as questionable, with a chance to return from a 9-game absence caused by a right leg injury. Atlanta's own beat reporting had her pegged as a game-time decision on the right leg. And then this happened. Paopao was not in the Dream starting lineup after all, and Jalen Sherrod was officially handed the start against the Fever instead. Think about that sequence for 1 second. A team that is one game out of a top 4 seed walked into the biggest game of its month starting a guard who was not part of the plan that morning. What happened next is exactly what the analytics crowd has been quietly worried about since the trade deadline. Atlanta's guard depth is paper thin the moment one domino falls. Canada leads that team in assists at 7.5 per game. Subtract her, subtract Paopao from the starting group, subtract Jones from the bench rotation, and suddenly the ball handling burden falls almost entirely on a starting 5 of Aliyah Gray, Rhyne Howard, Jalen Sherrod, Naz Hillman, and Angel Reese. That is a talented group. It is not a group with a natural point guard in it. And against a Fever team that pushes pace, that difference does not show up in the first quarter. It shows up in the fourth, when tired legs start making one extra dribble instead of one extra pass. But here's what almost nobody noticed, and it's my favorite detail in this whole story. There is a version of this narrative going around online that has Rhyne Howard sidelined and Atlanta collapsing without her. That rumor is dead wrong, and I want to shut it down right now so you don't get embarrassed repeating it. Howard is playing, and she is playing at a genuinely scary level. She has been averaging 17.4 points, 3.6 assists, 3.8 rebounds, and a career-high 2.4 steals across 34.5 minutes a night this season. On August 10th, she dropped 22 points with 6 three-pointers in a 107-95 win over Toronto. And she also went for 23 points against Phoenix in a 96-82 Dream win. Then, in that demolition of Connecticut, Gray and Howard each finished with 29 points. The only game Howard genuinely missed early on was for a different reason entirely. Atlanta ruled her out due to a concussion back in May, her first missed game of the season. So no, she is not out. She is arguably the hottest wing in the East right now, and pretending otherwise does nobody any favors. Now flip the sheet over, because Indiana's paperwork tells its own story, and there is a genuine scandal-adjacent wrinkle buried in it. The Fever's official status report read, Aliyah Boston, probable, right lower leg. Caitlin Clark, probable back. Damiris Dantas, not with team, left knee. Dantas underwent left knee surgery and will miss the remainder of the 2026 season. That is a real loss of size and shooting off the bench. And it explains a lot about why you keep seeing Michaela Timpson, Monique Billings, and Mercedes Russell cycling through those big man minutes. But the Clark line is the one worth reading very carefully, because it is not what casual fans assume. Her left ankle issue was not serious and did not swell after the game. And while she is still managing a back problem that dates back to the start of the season, it is not something the team is worried about. And then comes the receipt that flew completely under the radar. The Fever are essentially keeping her listed to avoid a penalty from the league, stemming from how Clark's injury status was handled on May 20th against the Portland Fire, and she is expected to stay on that injury report for the rest of the season. Let that land. A player's name appears on an official injury sheet week after week, partly as paperwork protection. That is the kind of thing that fuels every conspiracy thread on the internet, and honestly, I get why fans are suspicious. And it fits a pattern that has been building around this team all year. Remember, Clark's injury situation became such a hot topic earlier in the season that it drew even more scrutiny after the Fever revoked the credentials of longtime beat reporter Scott Agnes. You can debate the merits of that decision all day, but the optics are undeniable. When a franchise pulls access from one of the most respected reporters covering it, right as questions about its biggest star's health are peaking, the story stops being about a sore back and starts being about transparency. But that wasn't the whole story either. Because on the court, Clark has been answering every single question with the ball in her hands. She looked outstanding with 29 points and 10 assists against Dallas, shaking off a lower left leg injury late in the first half. She has been the driving force behind Indiana winning 10 of their last 13 games. And that 29-point, 10-assist night came in a 98-87 victory over visiting Dallas on Friday. Her head coach was not exactly hiding her admiration afterward either. Stephanie White said Clark is like a maestro, the way that she runs our offense, adding that when the Fever are at their best, Clark is instructing, running it like a show, and that Indiana becomes tough to match up with when she is commanding the floor. Maestro. That is the word from her own coach. And then, in the most Caitlin Clark move imaginable, she turned around and suggested the Fever still have room for improvement. After they trailed by 3 entering the fourth quarter and then won the final period 35-21. Winning a quarter by 14 and calling it a work in progress is either elite competitiveness or the world's most polite flex. Probably both. And she is not carrying it alone, which is the quiet reason Indiana is dangerous right now. Kelsey Mitchell has been the Fever's leading scorer at 24.4 points per game. Over a recent 10-game stretch, Mitchell has been unstoppable, averaging 28.3 points on 54.7% shooting, while Aliyah Boston has put up 16.1 points, 7.9 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 1.9 steals in that same span. Mitchell also supplied 23 points in that 98-87 win over the Wings, and Boston added 16 points and 10 rebounds in that same game. Oh, and one more name that this fan base absolutely loves for good reason. Sophie Cunningham cashed 4 triples in a win during this stretch. 4 threes from the toughest competitor on the roster. When Sophie is knocking down shots on top of everything else she brings defensively and emotionally, this Fever team becomes a completely different animal. What happened next would surprise everyone who only watches the box score, though, because Atlanta is not some wounded pushover in this matchup. The Dream had just battered Brittany Griner and the Connecticut Sun 104-69 on Thursday to move to 21-12. That is not a team limping. That is a team scoring 104 points. And their balance is real. 4 players average double figures, led by Alicia Gray at 19.2 per game, with Rhyne Howard right behind at 17.8, and Angel Reese averaging a double-double of 15.6 points and 12 rebounds in her first season in Atlanta. Say what you want about Reese and the discourse that follows her everywhere. 12 rebounds a night is 12 rebounds a night. She also logged her 22nd double-double of the season in that Toronto win with 20 points and 14 boards, and she grabbed 15 rebounds with 4 blocks and 3 steals against the Sun, even on a rough 8-3 of 13 shooting night. That last line is the honest scouting report on her 2026 season. The shot comes and goes, the physicality never does. So what if the injury sheet is actually the whole story of this rivalry? Follow me here. In that 108-101 Atlanta win in June, all 5 Dream starters scored 15 or more. Reese with 21, Jordin Canada with 18 points, 5 rebounds and 4 steals, Gray and Naz Hillman each with 17, and Howard with 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Canada was a huge part of that. And the Fever, remember, generated their comeback in that game with Clark on the bench after she picked up her 5th foul with 8 minutes and 41 seconds left. While Clark and Mitchell both finished with 26, Boston added 23 and 8, and Sophie Cunningham chipped in 12 off the bench. Now subtract Canada entirely from that formula. Subtract Jones from the bench. That is not a small edit. That is a different team. And the history between these two makes it even more loaded. Atlanta went 30-14 last season, finished first in the East, and still lost in the first round, 1-2, to the Indiana Fever. Indiana hosted its first playoff game since 2016 in that series, fed off a sellout crowd for its first postseason win in a decade, and closed it out with its first wire-to-wire playoff win since 2002. So, this is not a fresh rivalry with a clean slate. Atlanta has been the better regular season team, and Indiana has been the team that ended their year. That is the kind of history that turns a random August road game into a psychological event. The scheduling gods are not being gentle to either side either. Indiana was opening a 5-game road trip with this one, starting at Gateway Center Arena in College Park, Georgia against the Dream. 5 games away from home in August, with the star managing a back issue and your veteran big out for the year, is a genuine test of depth. And Atlanta gets no mercy either. After the Fever game, the Dream hit the road to face the Las Vegas Aces at 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Traveling to Vegas without your point guard and without your interior anchor is how good seasons quietly slide sideways. Zoom out one more level and you see why every game in this stretch feels frantic. The Minnesota Lynx are leading the league and just beat the Aces 92-87, and Golden State is sitting at 24-9. The teams at the top are not slowing down, which means the 4 versus 5 scrap in the East is really a fight over who gets a home crowd and who gets a plane ticket. Home court matters. Anybody who tells you it doesn't has never watched a road team try to communicate on defense inside a sold-out Gainbridge fieldhouse. Now let me pay off the loop I opened at the start because it's the piece I think gets underrated all week. Of the 3 names on Atlanta's sheet, the illness is temporary, the leg injury to Paopao is close to resolved, but the one with no timetable is the one with playoff consequences. Smesko's own words were that Jones has no timetable for a return. Reporting around her comeback framed it plainly. The All-Star Center's return could swing the playoff race. That is the sentence Atlanta's front office is living with right now. And here is my honest opinion as someone who has watched this roster all year. The Dream can absorb losing a guard for a night, because Gray and Howard are both capable of 30. They cannot absorb losing their only true traditional interior finisher in a 7-game gauntlet against teams with real size, because it forces Reese into a role she is not built for and pulls her away from the offensive glass where she does the most damage. There is also a 4th name almost nobody mentioned, and it tells you how thin the margins got. India Nevar, dealing with a personal matter, was not even listed on the injury report for the Indiana game, after previously showing up as day-to-day for personal reasons. When your 9th and 10th options are appearing and disappearing from the paperwork in the same week, your rotation is being written in pencil. That is the reality of a 12-woman roster in August. So where does this leave us? Indiana has the hotter offense, the healthier star, and the psychological receipt of having ended Atlanta's season last year. Atlanta has the season series lead at 2-1, a home building and 2 wings capable of 30 on any given night. And the injury sheet, the boring piece of paper nobody reads out loud, is doing more to shape this Eastern Conference race than any hot take you'll hear this week. That's the part I wanted you to see. Not the highlight. The paperwork. If this breakdown gave you something the big shows skipped, hit that like button right now, because that is genuinely what pushes these stories to more Fever fans. Drop a comment and tell me straight. With Jones out indefinitely and Canada's status now a live question every single night, do you still believe Atlanta wins a playoff series this year? Or does Caitlin Clark's fever run right through them again? And subscribe, because I'm already tracking the next thread on this one. There is a follow-up question about how long that no timetable language lasts before it turns into something far more permanent. And when that answer drops, you're going to want to hear it here first.